Hi, good morning, everyone. We're just going to wait till everyone comes in from the waiting room and we'll start in about 2 minutes. Okay, I think that's everybody. So I think we can start. Good morning, everyone. And we are so happy to facilitate this session on navigating transitions post-secondary and post-21 for our families in TDSB, and specifically for families where students have special education needs and disabilities. Next slide. I'd like to start first with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat, and we also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Slide. Yeah, thank you. So today we're going to go through several topics. First, we're going to be looking at transition plan for students with special education needs and or disabilities. We're going to speak to preparing for transitions both at home and school through partnerships. We're going to look at the post-21 transition supports, as well as the TDSB transition support site. I do want to just, first of all, I want to introduce myself, and I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. My name is Katya Palumbo, and I'm special education and inclusion centrally assigned principal and I oversee autism services and CIAT services. And I'm going to pass it on to Effie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Effie Stathopoulos. I'm one of the centrally assigned principals for special education and inclusion with the TDSB. And part of my portfolio includes responsibility for the deaf and hard of hearing and blind and low vision teams. And I'll pass it along to Tanya.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tanya Hazelton. I'm another centrally assigned principal for special education and inclusion in Learning Center 1, so the west side of the city. And I have 6 families of schools that I am responsible for. And I'll turn it over to our navigators.
Hi, good morning. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Good morning. My name is Kate Miles. I am a K-12 special education transitions navigator. I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues. I'll pass it to Chinzia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Chinzia Scarano, and I am also a K-12 special education and inclusion transitions navigator. Ashley?
Hi there, Ashley Weiss, also K-12 special education transitions navigator. And I'm not quite sure if that rounds out our panel or is
Yeah, that's our panelists for today. And so just before we begin, and Effie's going to start on the next slide, but I wanted to also just alert our families that are here today that we do have a Q&A area. So you can type in questions in Q&A, and we will do our best to respond to those questions. I do ask that they're specific to our topic today. If you have questions outside of our topic, please do either reach out to your school principal and admin. And we also have drop-in sessions. So if you go on the external site and click on learning sessions, you will see that there are drop-in dates where if there are specific questions that you want answered, we do have drop-in sessions. But for today, the topic is specifically on transitions. All right, thank you so much. And Effie, you can start with the next slide.
Okay, thank you. The first set of slides you're going to see will focus on the transition plan for students with special education needs and or disabilities. Next slide, please. The transition plan is focused around, we have some relevant policies and procedures that really guide the writing of transition plans for students. The first one is related to Regulation 180-198, which is all-encompassing around the Identification, Placement, and Review Committee decision-making process. However, there's a section in there that really focuses on the requirement of transition plans to be developed as part of the individual education plan for exceptional students who are 14 years of age or older, unless they are identified solely as gifted. The next memorandum the next policy is a memorandum that sets out for school boards and schools requirements for transition plans for students with special education needs from kindergarten to grade 12. And both of these documents really highlight the key piece that the Toronto District School Board has always invested time and work towards, and that's effective transition planning for students is important. Okay, next slide, please. This is we call it the Purple Guide for IEPs. It's a resource guide for educators and administrators to work through when they are preparing individual education plans for students with special needs or disabilities. And within this document is, again, mention of the transition plan and how important it is. It really is an integral part of the IEP, as it should be, and developed and reviewed in consultation with the students as appropriate. Because the one key piece that we truly value is student advocacy, and we really work towards ensuring that students understand their areas of strengths and how those areas of strengths can be used to meet their needs, along with the accommodations that are supporting them in the classroom. So part of that student piece is understanding their transitions to either the next grade level or transitions within the school day. The next folks are certainly the families, parents, guardians, and caregivers, specialized school support staff, and certainly when students are going through big transitions, when they're moving from school to school. We highlight for school staff, receiving staff, and also the feeder schools, the schools that are feeding into the larger school, the importance of coordinating meetings to discuss transitions for students with special education needs. And then, of course, involved are any other relevant community agencies or partners as requested by families, such as we have children's treatment centers, such as Holland Bloorview, mental health agencies, Sick Kids, Strides, Toronto, and culturally specific support organizations that families may want to include in the discussion. Next slide, please. Here we have just a sample of what the transition plan within the IEP looks like, and it's at the end of the IEP. It's usually found at the very end of the IEP, because the IEP is a working document, the first IEP may not have much on the transition plan. It may have pieces that were discussed and agreed upon from the last IEP from the previous school year. And this is why you'll see the little box here where it says no action required at present. But as the year progresses, and again, as the IEP is worked on, this section will be added to in order to support the transition for the end of the school year to the beginning of the to the next school year. Okay, next slide, please. And then the elements of a transition plan that you'll find is certainly the goals that are outlined in the plan in consultation with parents and guardians, and caregivers. So these transition goals identify all of the specific items related to the transition domains that are outlined. So there could be so one of the transition domains could be moving, from grade 8 to grade 9, or it could be, from a grade 3, the primary panel to a junior panel, grade 3 to grade 4, and so forth. But they outline the specific goals that have been decided upon and agreed upon to that are going to support the student with that transition. And it focuses on students, it highlights students' needs and interests. And so they really are student specific. You're not going to find the same from transition plan to transition plan usually. Number 2, actions required to achieve goals. So there are specific steps that are needed to reach transition goals. These steps may be student-centered, for example, requiring the student to explore community resources, or they may be adult-centered, involving a teacher, parent, guardian, or community member who serves as the facilitator to support the transition. Next slide, please. We have names of all of the people responsible. So for instance, the names of the individuals responsible for the required actions must be identified, and that's really to be transparent and hold accountability. 4, the next piece is the timelines. There are timelines that are set out for the implementation or completion of the identified actions. So these are clearly laid out so that everyone who is working with a student has an understanding of when the implementation or completion must be achieved. Next slide, please. And I briefly just touched on Big T transitions. Big T transitions, we like to call, involve changes to students' pathways in terms of location, school, and/or program. So these are big movement transitions out of programs, out of school buildings, moving locations, etc. They may involve significant change in support from adults to facilitate an effective transition. So for instance, administrators contacting administrators from the feeder schools, contacting, let's say, the secondary schools to, introduce themselves and lay out the fact that they recommend a transition meeting or intake meeting be arranged for the students in their schools. That are going to be going over to the secondary school, and just highlight the importance of having those discussions, and that would be included as an action item. And then the next piece here on the screen you'll see is really the documentation process of all of this really takes place, as I said, within that page, and you'll find it at the end of the IEP. Next slide, please. And then post-21 pathways. So as a part of the transition plan process, students and families really need to begin to consider their post-graduation pathway options as early as grade 9. I know that, being a mom of two sons who went through secondary, who have gone through their secondary years, they really go by quickly. So starting to have those discussions early on is quite imperative. And this plan can be modified as the student grows in experience and abilities and as their interests evolve. And then there's a link here that we have for the transition planning that the Ministry of Education highlights in terms of its importance, and really outlining the key pieces outlined in transition planning for families, for educators, really for all of us to take note of and to ensure that we are, again, you'll see here the regulations and the memorandums that I discussed earlier. And as you work through it, what it's what it really, the messaging, the summary of the messaging is that it's imperative for students with special education needs and or disabilities to have seamless transitions as they're moving along their educational career and through their pathways. So this is a great link to peruse and to familiarize yourself further with ministry recommendations and also expectations. Okay, and the next session here is preparing for transitions, home and school partnerships.
Effie. Elizabeth, if you don't mind putting in the chat that link that Effie just shared for families, then they can look at it on their own time. I don't want to lose that because when we do send this, it's a webinar, and so you might lose those links. So we want to provide those links for you in the chat.
Okay, and Katya will be addressing the next set of slides.
Thanks, Effie. So the next set of slides really is about our work together in home and school partnerships, preparing our young adults for the next step in their journey. Next slide, Elizabeth. And so when you think of transition planning, really all students in Ontario schools make various kinds of transitions. And when planned and managed effectively, these transitions become valuable learning opportunities and really do provide our students with different pathways towards the well-being and achievement and a sense of belonging in the community. Well-supported transitions help students build resilience, adaptability, and problem-solving skills. And we all play a key role in guiding our students through this transition. And when I say all, I mean educators, families, support systems, community partnerships, they all come together to guide our students. And successful transitions contribute to student confidence, well-being, and long-term success. And of course, transition planning looks very different depending on the learner and their profile, their student profile. Next slide. And so when you're thinking about planning for transitions, really consider that transitions happen at a variety of stages in life. Upon entry to school, between grades, from one program area or subject to another, when you're moving from one school to another school or to a different agency, from elementary to middle to secondary, and of course, after secondary school to the next appropriate pathway. Next slide. And so it's really important to support transitions at home. Big T transitions can be really scary. That includes moving to a new school or adjusting to a significant life change. And transitioning out of high school into post-secondary environments can be especially overwhelming. Post-secondary transitions involve navigating new expectations, routines, and greater independence. And so really working on supporting that transition way ahead of time is greatly, greatly appreciated and really encouraged. Students may need additional supports to manage the demands of college, university, work, or community services. And this is where having intentional conversations at the school, with your school team, as well as if you're connected with community agencies to really support that work. And successful support during these transitions helps students adapt to and thrive in new environments. Next slide. And so really it's about developing an intentional transition plan because a well-structured transition plan can help a student move successfully from high school to post-secondary environments by addressing their academic, social, and personal needs. And both school and home play essential roles in this process. Depending on the pathway that your child takes, the post-secondary environment will also play a very key role in supporting the transition plan. Next slide. And so we really do encourage a collaborative approach between home and school when you're working on transition planning, and communication is key. It's also important that when you're meeting with the school to discuss that you provide valuable insights into your child's life outside the school environment, because this also provides the school a more robust understanding of your child's personality, interests, and school dynamics. Encouraging consistency in the student support system between school and home, and recognizing the social emotional aspects of transitions, guardians, and caregivers can provide social emotional support and stability during this planning. So, really thinking about how the two can come together and talk through the profile of the child and the needs that may exist as they move on. Next slide. Schools can support the student and their family by collaboratively identifying student strengths, interests, and areas of need, facilitating ongoing discussions and providing continuous support through the years around transition planning, providing exposure to various post-secondary options, and connecting students and their families with community services that can offer additional support. What we're really been working on this year with the support of the navigators, and they will talk more deeply about it later, is coming up with learning opportunities for students and their families around transition related topics. And we've also developed a transition tool that you will familiarize yourself later in this session, that really speaks to the various components of transitions. And it is a website developed with families in mind to ensure that you have all the resources you need as you move through this new change. Next slide. Families, of course, can support the student by providing opportunities for students to manage some personal responsibilities and daily tasks. This is really key as you move in towards a more independent-like environment. Of course, there are students that will continue to have challenges with independence, and so really that is a very individual and intentional plan. And it is really about discussing what the expectations, fears, and goals are with the student and for the student. And as a parent, obviously offering reassurance while encouraging independence, adaptability, and problem solving skills. It's also really important to research different pathways, and there really is a true plethora of pathways. You've got college, university, apprenticeships, community programs, and employment, as well as, I'm going to say in that category, volunteerism. And helping apply for disability services, accommodations, and assistive technology, and exploring funding options, scholarships, and financial aid programs. As I said before, as we move on to this down the slide, you will be introduced to how to do that, and as well as the tools that you'll need to support that work. And it's also quite important that if you have a child that has specific special education needs, connecting with community organizations can also support that transition. Next slide. And so effective transition planning, of course, will minimize anxiety, insistence on sameness routine, disorientation and confusion, the feeling of isolation and withdrawal, as well as minimizing challenging behaviors. It will also increase flexibility, attention, predictability, motivation, and self-control. And the next slide, I think, is Tanya.
Yes, thank you, Katia. So I'm going to be talking about post-21 transitions and supports. Next slide, please. So as we're talking about transitions, we know that preparation is key. So preparing for transition, so post-21 transition planning helps students with special education needs prepare for life after school by building skills for work or daily living and looking at further education. So starting this planning early allows families and educators to create personalized plans that support each student's unique strengths and needs. And as Katia referenced, the partnership between home and school is essential in this, in setting the student up for success moving forward once they leave the school board. Next slide, please. So there are many services for 21-year-old students. So students with special needs are eligible to attend school as adolescents until June of the calendar year in which they turn 21 years of age. So I know there's often some confusion about this. So for example, if a student turns 21 at any point in the year 2025, whether it be a January birthday, a December birthday, or somewhere in the middle, They will transition from TDSB educational services to community, workplace, or post-secondary education in June of 2025. So irregardless of if June 2025 comes and the child is still, or the young adult is still 20 years old, that will be the end of their educational services with the TDSB because they are turning 21 in that calendar year. And it is the school's responsibility to ensure that a proper transition plan is in place and that the parents and guardians are aware of the graduation date and involved in the transition plan. So we do a lot of work to work with our schools to ensure that communication is open and ongoing throughout the year, so there are no surprises for any families. And as part of the transition plan process, students and families should begin to consider their post-graduation pathway options as early as grade 9. This plan can be modified as the student grows in experience and abilities and as their interests evolve. It is also likely that the transition plan will include aspects from multiple pathways, or the overall pathway may change over time. So when students with special education needs turn 21, they move from school to adult life. And this is an important time to help them become more independent and reach their full potential and contribute to their communities. Families, schools, and communities should work together to ensure a smooth and successful transition. And now, next slide, please. And I will turn it over to Kate, who's going to speak to the TDSB Transition Support Site.
Thank you, Tanya. The K-12 Transition Navigators at the Toronto District School Board are a dedicated team of special education and inclusion consultants committed to supporting students, families, and educators through key educational transitions. With expertise in special education, equity, and inclusive practices, our team works to ensure that all students, particularly those with diverse learning needs, experience smooth, successful, and well-supported transitions throughout their educational journey. Over the next several slides, we will explore the TDSB Transition Support website for families and how to access key resources that support transitions. These resources include transition timelines, disability funding and supports, community resources, life after high school resources for education and employment, and transition tips and resources to support successful transitions. Next slide, please. The TDSB Transition Support website for families is a new resource designed to assist families in navigating key transitions throughout a student's educational journey from kindergarten to post-21. This user-friendly platform offers valuable tools, information, and support tailored to ensure successful transitions for all of our students, including those with disabilities and special education needs. The website provides practical resources and guidance to help families plan effectively and make informed decisions when transitioning and preparing for life beyond secondary education. We're now going to share how to access the TDSB Transition Support site for families. To access the TDSB Transition Support site for parents, guardians, and caregivers, follow these steps. Visit the TDSB website. Go to the official Toronto District School Board website by typing tdsb.on.ca in your browser. This will take you to the homepage for the Toronto District School Board. Locate the transition resources. On the homepage, you can navigate to the left-hand side menu in orange. Click on the section labeled Supporting Students with Special Education Needs and/or Disabilities. You can then enter the support site. This will direct you to the specific area of the website where transition resources and supports are available. Next slide, please. The Special Education and Inclusion section of the Toronto District School Board website offers a variety of resources to support students with special education needs and/or disabilities. Among these resources, the Transition Support Site is particularly valuable for students preparing to move from high school to post-secondary education, employment, or other life stages. If you click on the yellow button with the butterfly, this will take you to the homepage for the Transitions Resource Site. Next slide, please. This site is designed to support you as a parent, guardian, or caregiver in navigating your child's transitions. Staff are committed to partnering with you to ensure your child's success during these important times of change. I'm now going to pass it to Ashley, who's going to lead us through greater in-depth look at the website.
Thank you, Kate. On the Transition Support homepage, the main navigation tool includes 8 clickable sections that focus on specific areas of transition support. So you'll note there the community resource tile in green. That includes external as well as internal services, so within the TDSB, and networks available to support students and families. The disability funding and supports highlights financial aids and resources for students with disabilities and special education needs. The Life After High School platform specific to education provides guidance on pursuing post-secondary education. And the Life After High School employment section further details the support available to students when entering the workforce. You'll also note there that there is a tile for TDSB transition parent communication, and these are ongoing opportunities to look at tools and strategies that would highlight specific transition supports. We've also included our webinars and resources there under the parent engagement area, so the parent webinars and resources. Tips for successful transitions. This includes practical advice to ensure smooth transitions, so ways that we can build and leverage our children's skills so that they can advocate successfully, and then transition timelines, which are roadmaps and schedules for effective planning. Next slide. Thank you. So we're just going to take a look here at the transition timelines. You'll note here that the TDSB Psychological Services timeline, this document outlines various services available to individuals with complex needs at different stages, along with the relevant contact information. So there's sort of a roadmap in terms of what actions are required at different stages of development. So at 16 years old, there's information available in terms of applying for services from Passport or Funding Day programs. It also highlights information on obtaining photo cards from Service Ontario. Key information around opening a bank account is provided, and any ODSP funding. And then it further details at 17.5 years of age or older information on transferring care from pediatric services to a doctor who will oversee the child's care as they enter into adulthood. And then before 18 years of age, the information on transferring care is noted there. So this is a really great reference and something that we're hopeful will help parents in guiding those next steps, and certainly for our educators at school in framing conversations alongside of you to ensure that families are connected with the right supports as they prepare for that move to adulthood. Next slide. Over here, we have our disability funding and supports. In this section, if we could just go ahead and click on that blue tile, it will open to the website view. Thank you so much. And you'll note here that this section outlines services and resources for disability funding and supports, including programs like the Ontario Disability Support Program, so ODSP, disability support centers, government funding initiatives, financial aid for assistive devices and transportation supports. It provides tons of details on eligibility, application processes, and the services available to assist individuals with disabilities in accessing financial and practical assistance. Next slide. I'm going to ask here again that we click on the Community Resources tile, this green tile. And the community resource page of the TDSB Transition Support Site for Families offers a curated list of services to really assist parents, guardians, and caregivers in accessing community supports for students with special education needs or disabilities. And some key areas to highlight, we have included the TDSB OTPT, so our occupational therapy, physical therapy community resource list. It is an extensive resource that really highlights community services for adults with disabilities, and it includes a roadmap. So really great in terms of navigating what's accessible to you within your local catchment area. So a list of agencies, post-21 agencies that might be of interest in exploring further. Additionally, there's some information to support conversations as families explore day programs, if this is something that you're looking to. You'll also note there that there are some resources specific to mental health and well-being, so connections with our community partners such as Luminous Mental Health, Developmental and Community Services, Kids Help Phone, CAMH, so the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, as well as respite organizations that would offer relief and services for families caring for individuals with complex needs. There's additionally some recreational and leisure programs available through Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation, Variety Village, amongst some others, and then transition planning. So tools such as the Planning for Beyond Graduation Toolkit and Connectability. And these are great guides that help to frame our conversations in partnership with yourselves. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Chintzia.
Thanks, Ashley. So another tile that you'll find on our website is called Life After High School Education. You can go into it or not, but this area outlines post-secondary pathways for students with disabilities, focusing on accommodations and transitions. It highlights support for accessing post-secondary education, including accommodations in colleges and universities. It also has information about transitioning to adult education and specialized programs for career development, while providing links to helpful resources and services. So this is all information about life after high school within the education realm. Next slide, please. Similarly, we have another tile called Life After High School, but this one focuses on employment. Here, we look at how to assist students with special education needs in order to succeed in the workplace when given the right support. So this area provides information on programs, job coaching, partnerships with employers that will help these students build skills and find jobs. So you'll see more links about Project Search Toronto, about apprenticeship opportunities, and again, our TDSB OTPT public website has some information and resources there as well in terms of self-advocacy and job interview preparation skills and so forth. Next slide. Another link on our site, this tile talks about tips for successful transition. So it was talked about briefly earlier in the presentation, you know, how all students from kindergarten to grade 12 experience transitions, whether it be starting school, moving between grades, switching to high school, or preparing for post-secondary pathways. This particular link helps to support these transitions so that the student can manage change and build independence. So here we've outlined some support for parents, so parent tips. And again, on the right-hand side there, how to encourage self-advocacy during these particular transitions. And then there's an additional 4 tiles there that just briefly explains some transition tools and strategies. For example, countdowns and visuals and transitional objects. Some items that might help with these transitions. One key piece, I think if you scroll down a little bit more, yeah, that blue banner there where it says for more tip sheets in multiple languages, connectability.ca, that is a clickable link there. If you click onto that, again, it will break it down into different transitions that a student may experience, and then there will be it'll be outlined there in different languages if you wanted to find out some information. Next slide. This is a really important one. Again, we talked about it briefly earlier on. It's the link that would direct you to TDSB parent webinars and resources. It has printable transitions resource lists. So again, all of those items that Ashley had talked about in terms of disability and funding and community supports, they're on one-page printable list, so you can just click on them and print them. There's also the TDSB Parent Guide to Special Education, which offers insights into special education services through our various departments, as well as other documents. And then there's you'll find links to our parent webinars and sessions, which provide learning opportunities for parents in the form of either slide decks, webinars, or links. So such as today's presentation will be linked there. And then the monthly parent newsletters, which where we share updates and information on education and well-being on a monthly basis. And now I'll pass it back over to Katya.
Thanks so much. I wanted to just note that we did put the link to the site that was just presented in our chat. You can also find the link if you go to our external site. As they mentioned, you can find it under the special ed and inclusion heading. It's under the tile called transitions. And so part of the resources that we shared today, of course, was the transition site, but there's also 3 other actually 2 other sites that we wanted to just speak about. And one of them is the TDSB Special Education and Inclusion site. So if you don't mind, Elizabeth, clicking on that, I wanted to just we can look at that together. And if you look at the site, this is on our external site, and it is jam-packed of everything you need to know about special education and inclusion supports in TDSB. So we have the vision and values, the special education and inclusion website, the TDSB special education plan, any frequently asked questions that come up. Chances are, if you have a question, it's probably been answered in the frequently asked questions. It also has a link to SEAC, which is our a partnership with external agencies that advise us on special education processes and ideas. And if you can click on Elizabeth, parent engagement sessions, I just want to highlight that section. It's right at the second row at the right. Yeah. And over in this section, and it's updated regularly, we have all of the drop-in sessions available for parents and guardians and caregivers to engage in. There are drop-in sessions provided by occupational therapy as well as our central special education team. And then we also have our engagement sessions. So for example, this today was on transitions. In the spring, we will be doing something on, and we just actually have to change the topic on this on the site, but in our spring session, it will be around about ADHD. So we update it regularly, and we have lots of opportunities for parents to engage in learning. And we also record our sessions. So very often you'll find on this site as well, all of our webinars from the past that you can listen to. One was from November, and then, we have ones from 22, 23 and 23, 24 for your listening and viewing pleasure. Okay, if you could go back to the slide. And the other resource document I wanted to highlight was one that was probably touched on throughout the presentation, and that is the Life After High School Toolkit. So if we can click on that. So the Life After High School Toolkit, if you go down at the bottom and click on that, that's the PDF. So if you don't mind clicking on that, Elizabeth. So just click on it and it'll open up into another at the top right. Yeah, thank you. So this is a PDF that we developed in partnership with occupational OTPT and my navigators, as well as our special education team. And this toolkit was developed to support students with developmental disabilities and physical disabilities in planning for life after high school. So it's very much tailored to those two low incidence groups and really talks about where to start. So in this toolkit, and it's printable, it's downloadable, it talks about the various pathways for transitions, general considerations for transitions. But what the best part of this document is it actually breaks down all of the recommended timelines. So the first one here, recommended timelines, age 14 to 15, what a family should do at this stage. So beginning in grade 9, it's important to collect the following, and we put all of the different documents that it's important to collect, and also the links to these documents for ease. So families can just click on the link and it brings you to where you have to apply. And we also, at the bottom of this page, for example, next slide. Age 16 to 17, here we talk about DSO, how to apply for an Ontario photo card, and what when completing a DSO application, what you need to have ready. Next slide. Another age 17, again, applying for ODSP, what you need, helpful hints and tips, and everything has a link so that you don't have to look for things. When you click on the link, it brings you right to where you need to go. Next slide. Age 18 to 21. And this is a really challenging time for families to figure out what happens after high school. And so the recommended timelines here talk about the different services that the child is eligible when they turn 18, reminders of what to do in terms of applications and planning. And also specifically, it also talks about the RDSP. So the next slide. Our next is all about setting up a bank account for your young adult and how that works and how RDSB works. And so again, I've put links to all these pieces in the toolkit for ease. It also goes on to describe what is a disability tax credit, what are the benefits of applying, helpful hints, links to the CRA's T2201 and all those pieces, as well as what is a registered disability saving plan, what is it for, how do you qualify, and again, links to that information on the different sites. We also have a page on applying for ODSP. Again, what you need, how to apply, and where the application link is. It's all in this toolkit. Same with the DSO. what the passport program is, and again, the links to that information, as well as other considerations. So in this, on this one, we talk about, for example, students that need structured day programs, how to access those, healthcare, what to do next, exploring programs through DSO for housing, for example. We also put in there, living at home with your family may make you eligible for support with daily activities for a personal support worker, how to access a personal support worker, as well as registering for TTC, for Wheel-Trans, for support person assistance card, and for fair passport discounts. And in this toolkit, we also put links to a variety of different supports that exist both externally in the community as well as in TDSB to support families as they move through transitions. Thanks, Elizabeth. This toolkit was developed just recently, and we're really proud of it. And we feel like it would be a good benefit for families to use as they move through, specifically the low incidence, which is physical disabilities and developmental disabilities. Next slide. So I think we had a couple of Q&As. So we don't have any more Q&As, but we do want to give families the time to fill out a survey. We took the last survey that was presented last session and really took a lot of the suggestions into mind when we considered how to present today. So these survey results really help us in our planning and in supporting our families across the system. So we do want to give families time to work on the survey so we can extract these results in a meaningful way. So if you don't mind, there's a QR code in front of you. If you can use your phone or your device to access this code, and it's a brief survey for you to complete, which will help us in our future planning, not only of our parent engagement sessions, but also of sessions that come up through our drop-ins and other opportunities to engage with families. That's all from me, but navigators, is there any other information that you want to highlight from the session?
Not at this time. Thanks, Katya.
Thanks. Effie and Tanya, is there anything you wanted to highlight in regards to transitions?
Not at this time.
Yeah, no, I think it was a very thorough information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you, Katya.
Tanya. And I'm just looking at the chat and sorry, the Q&A, and there doesn't, oh, there's a question that just popped. Help to get OAP funding, please. My child has been on a waiting list till date with no response. I need someone to advocate. So thank you for that question. In terms of getting support for your OAP funding, the best person to reach out to is your school-based social worker. So what my recommendation is to connect with your child's school and connect with that social worker to help navigate the next steps. Okay. And I don't see any other questions. So, how can I have a copy of all this information you have provided? So the webinar will be uploaded on our site in the next little while. So you can actually watch it again, or you can, go to the sections you're interested in. And we've put all of the links to the various resources in the chat that are appropriate, that when you access can get you to all the different pieces that were presented. Hope that answers your question, and you're very welcome. Wonderful. So we totally appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. I know it's not easy to come to sessions, and we're all incredibly busy, but we appreciate the time you've taken with us. And hopefully you've all filled out the survey. Elizabeth, if you can go back to the survey one more time in case someone hasn't pulled the QR code. And otherwise, it was a pleasure to present to you, and have a wonderful day.